All right, let's talk about sleep, but not just any sleep. We're going to dive into all those weird, sometimes kind of scary things that happen when you close your eyes. Think of them like fascinating glitches in your brain's nightly operating system. You know that feeling, right? You're just drifting off, it's all warm and floaty, and then, bam, your whole body just jolts. It feels like you're falling, and that shock snaps you right back awake. Well, that little jolt, that's just a tiny bug in this incredibly complex program running in your head every night. And, to really get a handle on the bugs, we've got to first understand the code that's supposed to be running. So before we get into all the glitchy stuff, what does a normal night software update even look like for your brain? Let's take a quick look at the basic blueprint of sleep. So every single night, your brain goes through these 90-minute cycles, maybe 4 to 6 times. First, you've got light sleep. That's when you're just drifting off. Then you sink into deep sleep, which is all about repairing your body. And after that, you hit REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. It's the really weird, wild dream stage. And once that's done, the whole thing just starts all over again. Okay, and this next part is absolutely crucial. It's called rematonia. So during that super vivid REM dream stage, your brain kicks in this brilliant safety feature. It basically paralyzes your voluntary muscles. Why? So you don't actually start running around jumping or, fighting dragons in your bedroom. This is a totally normal, super important part of the program. And trust me, we're going to come back to this one. Okay, so that's how it's supposed to work. That's the perfect program. But what happens when the code stutters a little bit? Let's dive into some of the most common, pretty minor glitches that almost all of us have probably experienced. And there it is, that jolt we talked about at the very beginning. It actually has a name. It's called a hypnic jerk. Basically, as your muscles start to relax and go limp, your brain kind of misinterprets that signal. It panics and thinks, whoa, hold on, we're falling. So it zaps your muscles with a huge signal to tense up and catch yourself. It's really just a simple sensory glitch, a total false alarm while the system is trying to shut down. Now, this next one, it sounds absolutely terrifying, but I promise, it's just as harmless. It's called exploding head syndrome. You're drifting off, and then suddenly, bam, you hear this deafening crash or a loud bang inside your head that nobody else hears. It's not a real explosion, it's just another shutdown glitch. The part of your brain that handles sound, it just misfires. All the neurons fire off at once. It's like your brain is slamming a door shut instead of just closing it quietly. All right, let's clear something up. People mix these two up all the time, but they are totally different glitches. A nightmare, that's just a bad movie your brain cooks up during REM sleep, one that you actually wake up from and remember. But a night terror, that's a glitch that happens when you're trying to transition out of deep sleep. Your body's fight or flight system goes haywire, but your conscious mind is still completely offline. So you might scream or thrash around or sit bolt upright, but you'll have zero memory of it. It's just raw panic without any awareness. Okay, so we've covered the minor stutters. Now, let's talk about the full-on system crash. This is where the timing between your mind and your body gets totally out of sync in the most terrifying way possible. We're talking about sleep paralysis. So imagine this. It starts and you open your eyes. You know you're awake. You can see your bedroom, maybe hear a clock ticking, but then you try to move. A finger, an arm, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Your mind is 100% online, but your body, it just hasn't gotten the message. The commands are getting lost somewhere, and you are literally trapped. And then, as if that's not bad enough, it can get worse. You start to notice your breathing. It feels shallow, restricted. And your brain, desperately trying to figure out what's going on, creates the sensation of a heavy weight on your chest. Now, this isn't a ghost sitting on you. It's a misinterpretation. See, in REM sleep, your breathing muscles are naturally suppressed a little. So when you wake up paralyzed and you try to take a deep breath on purpose, those muscles just aren't ready to go. And your brain interprets that resistance as you suffocating. And this is where it gets truly, truly unnerving. As you're lying there, completely frozen, struggling to breathe, this powerful sense of dread just washes over you. You become absolutely convinced that you are not alone, that someone or something is right there in the room with you, watching. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. Remember rematonia, that safety feature we talked about? Well, sleep paralysis is what happens when that paralysis switch doesn't turn off before your conscious mind reboots. It's a critical timing glitch, plain and simple. Your mind is online, but your body is still in total lockdown. So that presence, why do so many people feel it? Well, it's actually a pretty logical, even if it's a terrifying, chain of events. First, being paralyzed makes you feel incredibly vulnerable, right? This sets off your brain's ancient threat detector, a little part called the amygdala, sending it into hyper alert mode. It starts frantically scanning the room for danger. But the room is empty. And when it can't find a source for all that fear, your brain does the next best thing. It just invents one. It hallucinates a figure to explain the intense terror you're already feeling.
But wait, the glitches don't even stop there. The line between what's a dream and what's real can get blurred in some seriously disorienting ways.
This one might be one of the weirdest glitches of all. You think you've finally done it. You've broken free from the paralysis. You sit up, you swing your legs out of bed, you're free. And then, the room kind of flickers, and you snap right back to where you started, still totally paralyzed. This is a false awakening. Your brain is still in REM sleep, and it was just dreaming that you woke up. And the worst part? It can happen over and over again in these terrifying loops until you have no idea what's real anymore. You know, all this makes you wonder, is waking up in the middle of the night even a glitch at all? I mean, this whole idea of getting a solid 8 hours of sleep in one block, that's actually pretty new. It's really a product of the industrial era and artificial light. For most of human history, people had what's called two-phase sleep. A first sleep, then they'd be awake for an hour or two in the middle of the night, and then a second sleep. So maybe waking up at 2 a.m. isn't a bug. Maybe it's our brain's ancient default programming trying to come back. And of course, our whole sleep-wake cycle is run by chemicals. Just think of two main players. There's adenosine, which is like a sleep pressure that builds up all day long, making you tired. When you sleep, that pressure gets cleared out. Then you have cortisol. That's your get up and go hormone. It naturally starts to rise really early in the morning to get you ready to wake up. So that super common 4 a.m. wake-up call, it often happens right at that sweet spot where your sleep pressure is low, but those wake-up signals from cortisol are just starting to ramp up. So the big question is, why? Why do these glitches happen in the first place? And why do some of us seem to experience them way more than others? Let's decode some of the most common triggers. Well, it usually comes down to things that just throw your whole system out of whack. Things like high stress and anxiety. That keeps your nervous system on high alert 24/7. Not getting enough sleep or having a really irregular schedule. That totally messes with the system's timing. And get this, one of the biggest triggers for sleep paralysis, for a lot of people, is something as simple as sleeping on their back.
And honestly, that's the most important thing to take away from all this. For centuries, people blamed these experiences on demons, on ghosts, on all sorts of supernatural stuff. But now we know better. They're just fascinating, yeah, sometimes scary, but ultimately predictable bugs in the biological code that's running inside our heads every single night. So that really leaves us with one final thought. The next time you experience one of these glitches, that jolt, a phantom sound, or even the terror of being paralyzed, ask yourself this. Is your brain broken? Or are you just getting a rare peek behind the curtain, a glimpse into the incredibly complex, kind of messy, and amazing code that separates the you who's awake from the you who dreams? Because when you understand the blueprint, you can start to see these things not as something to be scared of, but as something truly fascinating. Hey, thanks for joining me for this explainer. Sleep well, and don't worry too much about the occasional system error.